see. Okay, shalom my friend, good evening. You know, I just arrived 5:30 today from New York, so I'm tired like a dog, but who cares? Maybe someone has anything, a little bit dehydrated. Wow.
Just also make it our
I'm sorry, what?
still open?
Oh, the heading of a shem because it was a yahrzeit on shoes, you mean? Or just like that?
No, we just came back.
You were in Mezhebush? Yeah? Whom did you go with? No, who went? A lot of people went? Yeah. Unbelievable. Wow. Sadly enough, you know. Sadly enough, when I was in Russia, I was only by Reb Nachman's. The word grave is a bad name, you know. Wherever he is. And Reb Levi Yitzchak. And I just want to tell you the difference. I mean, I hope to go back to Spirit of Hashem again, grave is a bad name, yeah. Kevarim, also a bad name. Says, well, you're the Isha school, so nobody can say, no, he's buried, because he is buried. He's sitting there. You know, the Gemara says, Reb Levi went to the Moras HaMachpelah, and he saw Avram, saw sitting in the chair, awesome, and a Holy Father saw, has his face in a Holy Mother Soul's lap. I'm sure it has the deepest meaning in the world. But you know, there's different people, right? And they're dead. Dead was invented by the snake, right? But anyway, I'll tell you something. You know about Reb Nachman? Reb Nachman says, why do our ears stick out? I mean, they could be inside, right? So Reb Nachman says, when you come to my grave, I'll pull you out by your ears somehow. So when you come to Reb Nachman, imagine I'm coming to an elevator and I'm pressing the 10th floor, right? But I made one mistake. The 10th floor on this elevator is the 10,000th floor, right? 10. So suddenly, you know, when there's a lot of people there, it was like, Mama, you can feel I'm not going to post you up. You know, after we left, Mama's people, a lot of people had to be walked to hold them because we're not in this world. They could just, we're not in this world, Mama's. From there to Kiev, it's 2 hours on the bus, they came back. Reb Nachman, you know, like all the Breslov Chassidim running around, Tikkun HaKloli, everything. Very holy, very beautiful. Reb Levi Yitzchak is something else. You come to Reb Levi Yitzchak, you go there, and at least I had the feeling. I got there and first you think it's crazy, nothing is happening. Start saying Tillim, it's crazy. Maybe I don't deserve it. I'm sure I don't, but still. You know what a good doctor is? A good doctor is, you don't even feel when they give you the injection. You know, not such a good doctor fools around, puts a needle here, puts a needle there, puts another place, then gives you a zest, you know. A good doctor's talking to you, and you don't even know he puts the needle in, right? So, do you need a better doctor than Reb Levi Yitzchak? Suddenly, it was an injection. It's like mamash, suddenly somebody injected heavenly honey into my heart. You know, we say the Hinnom Hashem Elokeinu Aleinu, let God's sweetness be upon us. How do you know what God's sweetness is, right? I couldn't believe it, you know. like suddenly, okay, how long could I stay? They had to leave. But as I walked out, I saw a Yid. It's really typical of Levi Yitzchak. With very short pants and a very small t-shirt, reading a Russian paper, sitting there by the Ohel. I said to him, "No most Yidden speak Yiddish." I say, "Man siehst Yid, man sweet Kivrei, what are you doing here, right? Reb Nachman, we have a yarmulke on and a gartel, he's a sitting like clothing." I say, "Tell him, he sits there reading a Russian newspaper." I say to him, "What are you doing here?" He says, I'll tell you Yiddish first. He says, "Ich will sein nun zum Tzaddik." He wants to be close to the Tzaddik. You know what that means? And you certainly then, Reb Nachman, before you go into you mamash have to do tshuva. You have to take a little holy bath, wash yourself, and then you realize how dirty you are, and he cleanses you more. But Levi Yitzchak, you walk in the way you are. And it's awesome. But the Shem that we haven't been privileged, how was it there?
For me, it was just how do you translate this word? It was intense joy. It was feeling how he took the Jewish people and burst them through to the love of God. And it had a lot to do with children. Mamish, the children, just teaching the children to pray, teaching the children to love God. And we came out of the camp and there's a whole group of Ukrainian children. We all started giving them trees.
Yeah?
Everybody started giving them things, nice things to
Unbelievable.
eat. It was all about the children.
You know, I had the privilege of, in Vienna, make a little film for the Austrian television. 10 days, they were filming me, and each day was a different topic. That's what Shem Tov talks about. And the last day was about Shem Tov and children. Very special. So it was very beautiful. They paid the shaman's ticket and she came. So the shaman was sitting next to me and I was like talking to her. And you know, basically the Shem Tov was the first one who came out, you shouldn't hit children. You know, and when the Baal Shem Tov, his first stelle, his first position was an assistant to the Rebbe in the Cheder. And I don't want to say anything too bad, but this is how it was. The Rebbe of the Cheder was supposed to wake up the children at 7. Let's say he has 20 kids, he doesn't have time, you know, to take care of every child. He goes there, yells at a child, or pulls him by the ears, or tears off the blanket, get up and come. So he assembles 20 kids, then he gets to the Cheder, those poor kids. Most probably it's still dark outside, and begins teaching them all day long. It's a wonder we are still Jews after our Cheder Rebbes, you know. I don't want to say anything bad. The Baal Shem Tov, something else. Baal Shem Tov became the assistant. So his job was to wake up the kids in the morning. So the holy Baal Shem Tov would go in and see, let's say, Moishele, Ochele, they're sleeping, he would sit on their bed and sing them a song and then talk to them so softly. And he'd say, Moishele, would you like to get up maybe to learn a little bit Torah? So we got to Ochele. So with each child he spent half hour. So you can imagine waking up 20 kids, by now it was 10 o'clock. And then he didn't drag them to Cheder, but he had a thing that he walked around the whole city singing till he got to the Cheder. The way I'm telling you to now, I heard from the Friedrich Rebbe, one Shavuos, he was telling us a story about the Baal Shem. So he says that the tzaddikim said that since the singing of the Leviim in the Beis HaMikdash, there was not singing that's reached heaven so much and so high like the singing of the children every morning was about Shem, and he would walk them to Cheder. Well, I'd leave it after the establishment, Baruch Shem. I'm sure today would be the same thing, when you're wasting too much time on waking them up, and so he was dismissed. But anyway, I just have to think one more thing, Tamar, I'm sure you remember it. You know, today, sadly enough, every person who has a beard and his wife has a sheitel, and he eats glad kosher meat, he has a chutzpah to call himself chossid, you know. He's not even religious, but let's assume, let's say he's religious, right? Chossid. You know, by the Rebbe's, remember Reb Melech, when his first child was born? He was up all night, he was sitting by the crib, and he was asking, and he was crying. So the Chassidim asked him, what are you crying? He says, I'm asking my baby for forgiveness. Because I know I'll never be a good enough father for my baby. What do we know? Remember, I said it 2,000 times, I have to say it one more time. Why is Yitzchak called laughter? You know what children cry? The first time we yell at them, they cry forever. Yitzchak, nobody ever yelled. Can you imagine Avraham yelling at Yitzchak? It's a holy mother's story. Yelling at Yitzchak. Who's the holy of holiest? Kodesh Kadosh. You know the holy worker? Whenever he had to say something strong. Children are children, sometimes you have to tell them, right? That's what parents are for, to tell them. But the question is, how do you tell them? So the holy worker, remember he had those two holy sons, Yaakov David, the Heilige Amshinore, and Reb Mendel, what's the night? It's given. Which night is that? What? Good sign. So today was the Yortzeit, test sign, the Yortzeit of Reb Mendel Levoke. You're old. Reb Mendel Levoke, the silent Rebbe. I mean, he was not silent, but he just spoke a few times, but when he said it was like Mount Sinai. But anyway, whenever the holy worker had to say something strong to his children, he would call them in. He would say, Yaakov David, he would say, Mendele, make yourself strong, because I have to yell at you. You can imagine how much he yelled at his children. I have to tell you something. You know, it's crazy. You know, Amanda Levoke, I'm sure you know that ordinary people saw the ordinary. The moment a person is not doing everything the way everybody else is doing it, so people have their doubts. You know the Kotzke Rebbe? Some people said, oh, he's not even religious, he doesn't keep Shabbos, he doesn't daven. Who knows? He may not even believe in God. Reb Mendel Levoke was so way out, so people didn't know how to handle it, which is good. So the Heilige Mendel Levoke, when the daughter of his brother, Rabbi Yaakov David, got married, he came also, because his brother. And you know, Reb Mendel Levoke had this Chassidim fire. So they're sitting there, suddenly Reb Mendel Levoke says, anybody has some cards? He says, you know, it's too late to begin to learn, and it's too early to daven, let's play cards. And the other Chassidim hear this, what? A Rebbe, 3 in the morning, he's playing cards, they're all running out. Terrible. The Mendel says, is everybody out? They said yes. So they closed the doors. And they sat in silence for 10 hours. But you see, when Reb Mendele sits with you in silence, you don't look at the watch and you think, oh, when is he going to talk? Have to sneeze, have to make a phone call. When Reb Mendele was out, everybody was out of their physical being. You didn't have to go to the bathroom, you didn't have to sneeze, you didn't have to eat. The longest tish Reb Mendele had was the second day of Shavuos, was 14 hours. 14 hours. What can you say? What can you say? But a Mendele worker, the most important thing is, how deep is it? How deep is it? And this is an awesome deep story, although it sounds simple. One Erev Rosh Hashanah night, Chobris, thousands of Chassidim came, everybody was learning, and on the floor was a poor Yidele. And never, who knows where he came from. Obviously he had no money to go into a kreshma, so he put his suitcase under his head like a pillow, and he was sleeping. So Commander Ruka walked in about 2 o'clock at night with his son, and he says to him, you see all of them learning? Nowhere. Don't reach anywhere. He says, you see this Yidele sleeping on his suitcase? He says, Gewalt is he reaching. Gewalt is he reaching. One time a father and a mother came, and the child was sick, and the mother was yelling and crying and making a big tumult. I'm sorry. The father was yelling and making a big tumult. Rebbe, you have to promise me the child will live, and make a big tumult. And the mother was standing by the door. She didn't say a word. Just as tears in her eyes. So the Mendele says to his son, you see, the father doesn't reach anywhere. The mother. It's all the same story. But once you know the Heilige, the Chayze Lublin, the Seer of Lublin was very sick. All the Chassidim of his mother saying Tillim. You can imagine it was already shaking up heaven and earth. And Reb Yitzchak Berdichev, who was only 17 at that time, he was sitting outside of his medrash and smoking a pipe. Imagine we would walk into the medrash in Lublin, we would say, disgusting, The Rebbe is sick, everybody is saying Tillim and crying, and here this chutzpah 17 years old, was sitting outside smoking a pipe. At the middle of all this, Reb Simcha Bunim, right, the greatest, ran out. And he said to Reb Yitzchak Berdichev, Yitzchak, stop turning over heaven and earth. It's too late. Different eyes, different Yidden. The Heilige Shinuvim, there's the Mamash classic Torah. He says, when I was little, when I grew up, I was sure that the blacksmith is the richest man in the world. Because when he works so loud, and he's sweating so much, and the whole city knows he's working, I'm sure he's a millionaire. Nebuchadnezzar, right, has a little suitcase with him, doesn't make any noise. Nobody hears when he makes business. He must be the biggest shleper in the world. But when I grew up, he says, I realized, the more noise you make, the more poor you are. The jeweler makes no noise at all. He is a real millionaire. You know, in Pshischa, like mostly in routine, when you daven, you don't shocker with film. So Reb Nachman Alexander, when he was 18 years old, came to Pshischa. And he was before, I'm mentioning names, different Rebbe. And by that Rebbe, Mamash, when you daven, you yell so loud. Please don't take me wrong, because I'm not yelling now, because everybody has their way of serving God. Anyway, he was yelling and jumping like crazy. So suddenly he comes to Pshischa. Pshischa, everything's inside. So it was hard for him. One day he decided, I've got to daven again like I'm accustomed. So he went to this medrash at the outskirts of the city. He felt so good, Baruch Shem, I can daven again like a mensch. And he began yelling, Hail Hashem, give up. I'm Muslim. The door opens, Reb Simcha Bunim walks in. So he says to himself, I cannot daven like crazy, because I'm supposed to be my Rebbe's chassid, and my Rebbe davens, still ahead. Well, then suddenly he thought to himself, am I davening before my Rebbe, or am I davening before God? And he began to let loose. When he finished davening, the Bunim walked up to him and he says, Hey Nachman, today you davened. Never know. There's also an unbelievable story, those Pshischa stories. One night the Heilige Pshischa was talking to the three greatest pupils, Kotzke, Chedushirim, and Reb Nachman Alexander. Chedushirim was maybe 27, the Kotzke was 30, and Reb Nachman was 18. And they were talking. Suddenly he says, it's time to daven Marav. When you hear from Simcha Bunim, it's time to daven Marav. He opens all the gates of your heart. So he began to daven. So Reb Nachman thought, I'd like to see how those two others, they're older than me, let's see how they daven. The Kotzke is standing in a corner. Kotzke don't make any noise. But he saw the floor as wet with tears. Chedushirim, fire. Fire from heaven. He sat down at the table and he was so broken. And he says to himself, I never daven like those two. I never reached them. So he didn't want to daven at all. I can't daven. Well, then suddenly he thought to himself, I still have to daven, because God wants me to daven. So he says, God, I'm so sorry. I really don't know how to daven, but I'm just davening because you want me to daven. Pshischa opens the door. He says to the worker, Mendele, no. The shem, it's like man, no. Henna, you really davened. You never know whose prayer is really answered, But Tamar, let me tell you, I would say that 50% of people who left Yiddishkeit anything bad, I began asking around myself, after Auschwitz, right? in a crazy way. So many people don't want anything to do with Yiddishkeit anymore.